He was a shepherd boy, attached to the farm of the Count of San-Felice, situated between Palestrina and the lake of Gabri. He was born at Pampinara, and entered the Count's service when he was 5 years old. His father was also a shepherd, who owned a small flock, and lived by the wool and the milk, which he sold at Rome. When quite a child, the little Vampa displayed a most extraordinary ferocity. One day, when he was 7 years old, he came to the curate of Palestrina and asked to be taught to read. It was somewhat difficult, for he could not quit his flock. But the good curate went every day to say mass at a little hamlet too poor to pay a priest, and which, having no other name, was called Borgo. He told Luigi that he might meet him on his return, and that then he would give him a lesson, warning him that it would be short, and that he must profit as much as possible by it. The child accepted joyfully. Every day Luigi led his flock to graze on the road that leads from Palestrina to Borgo. Every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, the priest and the boy sat down on a bank by the wayside, and the little shepherd took his son out of the priest's breviary. At the end of 3 months he had learned to read. This was not enough. He must now learn to write. The priest had a writing teacher at Rome make 3 alphabets, one large, one middling, and one small, and pointed out to him that by the help of a sharp instrument that he could trace letters on a slate, and thus learn to write. The same evening, when the flock was safe at the farm, the little Luigi hastened to the smith at Palestrina, took a large nail, heated and sharpened it, and formed a sort of stylus. The next morning he gathered an armful of pieces of slate and began. At the end of 3 months he had learned to write. The curate, astonished at his quickness and intelligence, made him a present of pens, paper, and a penknife. This demanded new effort, but nothing compared to the first. At the end of a week, he wrote as well with this pen as with the stylus. The curate related the incident to the Count of San-Felice, who sent for the little shepherd, and made him read and write before him, ordered his attendant to let him eat with the domestics, and to give him 2 piastres a month. With this, Luigi purchased books and pencils. He applied his imitative powers to everything, and, like Giotto, when young, he drew on his slate sheep, houses, and trees. Then, with his knife, began to carve all sorts of objects in wood. It was thus that Pinelli, the famous sculptor, had commenced. Okay, honest time first. I'm a little lost. I'm not lost. I understand what's happening. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. But Pastrini is going into a lengthy story about Luigi Vampa. I mean, going all the way to Vampa's childhood, and I don't even really know who this mythological bandit is yet beyond that. I guess we're learning, but, like, why? Sometimes the premise of this show baffles me. I mean, it's a baffling premise to the show, but what I mean is, it is scrambling my continuity with what the story is doing or trying to do, because I was already a little untethered, having now followed Franz through 2.5 chapters, but now we're having a hotel concierge, or a host. I shouldn't call him a concierge. I don't know that he's a concierge. A host of this inn, telling a story to a character we just met about another character who we have not met, only through rumor. I'm very, untethered. So bear with me, I guess, is what I'm asking of you listeners, as I try to draw meaning from something that I know I won't have meaning for until it's evident. It's just a challenge to figure out what to say here. I guess I'll just take this as it's being presented to me, trying to break down who Luigi Vampa is. And then we'll have an understanding of who Luigi Vampa is, even though I don't really know who Franz and Albert are. But this is the messiness of the show, and we embrace the mess here. Okay, Luigi Vampa, bandit of notoriety. We learned that myth already. He hinted at Vampa's extraordinary natural ability to do things over violence or random chance. And this story that he's telling, which, by the way, I've opted, remember in the Abbe Faria days when he would tell stories, wouldn't do the Faria voice all through the story because it would be a lot. So I'm just using my own kind of voice to do it, as if I'm not doing dialogue, even though all of this is dialogue because it's Pastrini that is telling it all. Anyway, talking about Vampa's childhood, in that he showed from an early age, 7 years old, the ambition to learn to read and write, the talent for it, and the vigilance to overcome the time of the day while he is tending to his flock, but also the lack of resources and access to those resources. Very independent child, taking what was given to him and essentially using it as a jumping off point to become self-taught in a lot of ways, using the resources that are offered, obviously, by the priest who comes in through town. But quickly, it seems like his talents are recognized by the Count, not of Monte Cristo, but of San-Felice, which seemed to change the course of Vampa's life pretty early on. You can imagine that Vampa would have ended up being another farmer like his father, but in having been recognized for his talents, the Count of San-Felice gives him an allowance of 2 piastres a month, allows him to dine and be part of his world, even if it is with the domestics at this point, as he used the term, essentially bringing him out of the humble life that he was engaged with and into, I mean, the lower dredges of the upper society. To me, what I took here is like the Downton Abbey upstairs, downstairs crowd. Vampa is now downstairs. Is that still looked upon in society as more than the farmer? I don't know. I don't know much about the social hierarchy of the times. Maybe I should look into that. But that seems to be all we've really got now. Let's also not forget that he's essentially telling a story from early 19th century Italy, not France, which is where we spent most of the first part of this book. So now we are mostly in Italy. Also, just to mention some geography, since we are talking about Italy, a mixture here of real and fabricated stuff. Palestrina is a historic hill town just on the east side of Rome. Borgo, we heard that a couple times. That's just a generic name for a small village or hamlet. And Pampanara, as far as I was able to find, is fictional. That is the rural area that Vampa is initially brought up into, his birthplace. So there's that to kind of orient us geographically. I think the last thing I want to mention here is, and maybe we'll go into this more depending on what other details and how long we spend in this Vampa story. Dumas really seems to be interested. If he's the one that is generating the characters that the stories are following, he seems to be very interested in sort of savant characters, or maybe not savant, but like just the innate genius or effortless talent of characters that is rampant in the Three Musketeers. But I think also we can look to Dante as a character like that. I mean, how quickly he took to Faria's teachings and how effortlessly it seems he took to disguises and such, planning and scheming and learning. So this is a thing that Dumas seems to like to explore in his characters. And I get it. I will say, in the Three Musketeers, there was a bit of a Mary Sue-ness to them, where they could do no wrong. I mean, D'Artagnan maybe a little bit, but at least the Three Musketeers, they always seemed to, even if they fell into like precarious situations, they were unflappable. And Dante seems a little unflappable as well. But what's more interesting to me is that he seems to have a bit more gradient to his moral center, which, again, I would love to see, but we're so far divorced from Dante at this point. God, it's been months. It's been literal months since we've actually been in Dante's head. Goodness gracious. All right, I don't want to dwell on that because we're learning about Vampa here, and I don't want to diminish the power of storytelling that we are currently engaged in. So join me here tomorrow as we learn more about this unfinished story regarding little Vampa and his childhood, whoever he is, this Roman bandit. Okay, until tomorrow, see you then. Goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.